numbers of men in female-dominated areas, still very low numbers of females in the private sectors as entrepreneurs, in oil and fishing. Looking at all these measures, all these initiatives, all these laws and regulation, something that Milton Friedman said comes to mind. One of the greatest mistakes is to judge policies and programs by their intentions rather than their results. And now we're going to look at the results.
Also, when we talk about gender equality, it's important for me to learn my daughter that her mom can lead and show the way, and her dad can hug and kiss her and show feelings. And I think that's something very important, but also for women that feel this roof of glass. They need to fight and to struggle the roof of glass to be successful in their lives.
There are so many articles online talking about how Norwegian men totally agree. They're feminists, you see. Are they? Are they? The institute I mentioned earlier, Samfunnsforskning, they did a study in 2022, a survey nationwide, very well funded, large sample size. I read through the entirety of it to try to see past what they were saying that they found. And the first sentence of it reads, "There's large consensus about gender equality in Norway." And it turns out that 1 in 4 young men think that gender equality has gone too far. And another 30% think that it's gone quite far enough. So there's a 50-50 split here. And so there was a royal decree then about, we have to start thinking about men. And they set up this thing called Mannsutvalget, which is the commission, let's call it the Commission for Men. So great, let's have men have their say. What I found was interesting, though. Out of the 17 representatives on this commission, 7 were females, and a lot of them were the same feminists that had done this core survey. So you have self-declared feminists sitting in the Commission for Men, and they just came out this year, 2024, with a list of recommendations towards gender equality. And one of these recommendations was that the anti-discrimination law that was set up in 1978, this should have gender-neutral language. And people were outraged that one very prominent feminist wrote in response to this, yes, young men are significantly more represented in crime statistics than women. They are overrepresented in Norwegian prisons and live shorter lives than women. Men also top the list of those who die in workplace accidents. 2 out of 3 people who take their own lives are men. So there's a lot to address. However, the suggestion by the Men's Commission to make Gender Equality Act gender neutral is like declaring a problem healthy. So it's saying all these terrible things are happening to men, but women might suffer from fibromyalgia. And so these feminist groups are very concerned that women's health would suffer because they need more gender-specific considerations. Let's look at health. Let's look at what's going on health-wise. 70% of suicides are men. Men live 3.5 years shorter than women on average. Men die from prostate cancer, which doesn't have a national screening program. Men are more likely to die from self-injury, drug, alcohol abuse, traffic accidents, cancer, cardiovascular diseases, musculoskeletal or neurological disorders. And 3 out of 4 Norwegian men are obese. 95% of the jobless are men. So no wonder that the leader of something called the Men's Forum highlight that many men, they feel redundant. They feel reduced to financial providers with limited contact with their children. They're burdened by taxes supporting other people's families. They feel completely reduced to something that isn't even worth mentioning. So no wonder that now 47% of young men said they would vote for Donald Trump. That was huge. It was everywhere. Young men would vote for Donald Trump. So you can cry, our men are feminists all day long. It just isn't so. I think it's really worth to say, as I was going through this core survey, I was struck by the men having taken time to write a good response to this question. What do you think about when you hear gender equality? What does that mean to you? And they really, instead of just saying, oh, people nagging crazy women, they'd actually written what they thought about this. So Norwegian men giving their opinion. And I really think it's worth giving that a platform. One man said, equality in Norway only seems to work when it benefits women. When will we start holding women to the same standards? Men work far more overtime than women. Shouldn't that be paid out? Another one said, equality as promoted by political left and feminists ignores natural gender differences. It has led to more gender-based discrimination instead of focusing on qualifications and competence regardless of gender. They also pointed out that while they're increasingly capable of taking on traditional women's roles in the home, they think that few women seem interested in learning to take on men's tasks.
Don't chop that. Don't use that to chop the ice.
One says, when men are left alone, they tend to manage all household tasks without external help. Women, however, don't seem as interested in learning traditional men's skills. It's easy to say, oh, so and so many people think that feminism is a great idea, because you call them and you say, what do you think about feminism? And they'll say, sure, like it's great, I guess. Like no one's going to tell you to their face in Norway that they're not feminist. No one's going to do that. So I think look at how we're doing psychologically. Look at what we are doing, our behaviors. For example, when you've made paternity leave mandatory, which means that's 3 months of money for work that you're not taking. You're saying no thanks to money. You would think that more than 65% of fathers would take that leave. Maybe that's telling you something. Maybe it isn't that their workplace is so hostile. I mean, I've been told from people working in private sector in Norway that if you get up from a meeting at 4 o'clock and say, I have to pick up my kid from daycare, like the women there will applaud you and the men they'll be following you out to do the same. So I'm not sure I really believe that the workplaces are so hostile that you can't take your mandatory paternity leave, for which you get in a lot of trouble if you don't give. In addition, in 2021, 76% of mothers said that they felt they didn't get enough time with their babies. And you see that in their behavior as well. Until now, 49% every year of women, they take unpaid leave to be with their baby because they don't feel they get enough time with their babies when they're born. So they take additional leave. And you have to remember, Norway is a huge supporter of breastfeeding. So we're told, breastfeed until like there's nothing left. And then they say, no, but you have to go back to work at 7 months at the latest. It's very conflicting. That's what we're doing. I also went through on the pages of the government, what sort of measures are in the gender equality, the strategy for gender equality until 2030. And it's astonishing how many of the points are just get more information, support research, because we literally can't do anything else. Like we've done everything possible, and still you have just 9% of the nurses are men and 10% of fishermen, despite of all that money, are women. Are you looking to make your home stand out? Do you want visitors to pause at a stunning piece as they enter and say, I've never seen anything like this. Where can I get one? I was able to have that for the first time after having Benjamin Hassan design our beautiful, one-of-a-kind ketubah that's now proudly displayed in our living room. He also does landscapes and portraits, anything you want, aptly matching the mood and atmosphere you want to set, creating that moment you long for as you design your home. Go order your favorite piece that will come to mean the world to you at benjaminhassanart.com. That's benjaminhassanart.com and get a discount with promo code Psychobabble Podcast today. Go check it out. What else are we doing? Well, it seems we're not hooking up. The average rate of first-time marriage is for women 35 and for men 37 years of age. More than half of children are born to unmarried parents. And 30% of kids are experiencing parental separation. Approximately 46,000 kids live without daily contact with their fathers. What is this doing to us? There's a researcher called Amundsen. He reports that 40% of students they have school refusal issues. Over 50% of them are bullied. And 50% of kids have no positive relationships with any adults at school. Nearly 10,000 children in Norway are on antidepressants. Mental health struggles in Norway are just staggering. We are not doing well. So this graph shows the prevalence of psychiatric disorders among children from 1990 to 2022. You see the gradual increase among boys, 8%, among girls, 11%, and there's a slight increase you see after social media, after 2010, but these problems started already in the 90s. It started already with the chase for gender equality, and the numbers are even worse for adults. In this graph, you see symptoms of depression in women aged 20 to 29, 30 to 39, 40 to 49, all these different age groups. So in women, 20 to 29 years of age, 5% in 1995, and in 2019, 11. What you see in these graphs is that it's gradually gotten worse since the 90s in every single age group. By 2019, the number of anxiety had risen in women to 32% and in men to 19%. If you're interested in why we're displaying these symptoms now, you can go to Psychobabble. You read my 2 articles on male and female archetypes, and you can see exactly why we develop anxiety or depression, usually both, as a direct consequence of living according to these feminist principles. So I really recommend you go and do that. You see this clearly. Another example of this, look at what I do, not what I say, is that the head of NAV, which is the department responsible for all, like everything work related, everything social security related, he says that the number of sick leave is absolutely shocking. He describes the situation as alarming. He says that Norway has the highest rate of sick leave in the world. Here you have the graphs that shows 22% of all sick leave is related to psychiatric disorders. Since 2019, sick leave for psychiatric disorders has increased by 44%. This NAV graph shows that sick leave due to various disorders have increased, but psychiatric disorders is the leading cause. So sick leave increased the most among young people, particularly those aged 25 to 29. It rose from 5.4 to 5.7 during this period, and psychiatric disorders account for 30% of sick leave among this group, 25 to 29. And I thought here that it was worth mentioning that I tried to see, because in Norway, because you have such a nationalized, centralized system, for you to get psychiatric help, you need to, or any type of for health issues, you need to go to your GP first and get a referral. It's very strict. Well, now there is an increase in private health as well. People are spending a lot of money on that because of the long queues. But generally speaking, you need to go to the GP's office before. So that's why this is a good gauge of how many are sick, how many are struggling. And in 2023, there were 2,063,000 GP appointments because of psychiatric symptoms in a population of 5 million. Another issue is that the disability leave is also rising. So at the end of 2024, we had around 371,200 people receiving disability leave. And this was a welfare program that was started out of generosity to those who can't work. But the problem is now we have many retirees who can't afford to live because their pensions are reduced. And what is so concerning is that too many of the people receiving disability benefits are young people. You see this graph, this is tracking disability among young people from 96 to 24. It shows a steady increase over the years. And the worst of that is that 68.4% of young disability benefit recipients, they are registered with diagnoses related to mental disorders and behavioral issues. This graph shows that 41% of the total disability leave is given to psychiatric disorders. The second biggest group is muscle and skeletal disorders. And a lot of those disorders also belong in the in the category of psychiatric disorders. So kids are suffering, women are suffering, men are dying, kids are bullied, they don't want to go to school, women want to stay at home with their babies, men feel sidelined and not heard. They're not seeing their kids and suffering because of that. The country is not raising a generation that can take care of the old. So where is this going to go? We're quickly running out of money. What do they want to do? They want to make sure that boards in the private sector are also 40% women. Well done. There's probably a lot more. This is what I chose to highlight. I think it's really interesting to see this clash between the feminists and the Commission for Men and the people who are starting to say, hey, listen, we have a lot of problems with violence, with drugs and alcohol among men. And, instead of saying, oh, that's because, we have to give more financial support, we have to give more money to psychiatric institutions that deal with this, we'll need to say, no, it's because men are increasingly feeling sidelined. Men don't have a role. We're not doing right by men. That's why they're drinking and taking drugs and committing suicide. And instead of taking that seriously, the feminists who oppose the recommendations of the Commission for Men, they're saying, oh no, it's because we have to ensure that women have equal considerations in health, because women's health issues aren't being considered. If you look at the statistics, women go to the GP more than twice as much as men do. It's not about, as they say, the status hierarchy in medicine leads to gender inequality in health. No, it's triage. The numbers tell us this. When men go to the doctor, they're sicker than the women are, and what they have is more life-threatening. So we see this clash between men's rights activists and feminists. And I have to say, after everything that I've read, I don't think that they're focusing enough on the kids. Not in any of these documents have I read anything to the effect of, maybe daycare isn't the solution for kids. Maybe, seeing as these disorders go way back to the 90s, maybe it started with removing the mother from the child's life. they're arguing about who has the right to the children, who should have the right to what, and who should be considered more. Norwegian kids are the clear losers. We need to change our stance to a pro-family stance, where we try to get men and women back to want to live with each other and want to